Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Compagno, here with my co-host, Kayleigh McEnany, and also joining us today, co-host of The Bottom Line on Fox Business, Dagan McDowell, Fox News contributor and board-certified radiologist, Dr. Nicole Saphier, and Fox News contributor, retired U.S. Marine bomb technician, and the author of the new book, Unbroken Bonds of Battle, Joey Jones. We begin with newly released testimony by the second whistleblower related to the IRS and Justice Department's criminal investigation into Hunter Biden. That whistleblower wants to remain anonymous. His attorney refers to him only as Mr. X. Mr. X says it was clear to him that U.S. Attorney David Weiss, who was handling Hunter's case in Delaware, was not making the decisions. But Attorney General Merrick Garland has denied preventing Weiss from charging Hunter. Both IRS whistleblowers, who spent years investigating Hunter, told Congress they made several attempts to bring charges against Hunter, but were blocked. And now, the mounting evidence has become so explosive that it's not just Fox News asking the tough questions in the briefing room. Watch.
Yes or no, was the president involved in the shakedown attempt?
Stephen, I just answered the question. It's not up to you how I answer the question.
Was the president there or not?
I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House Counsel.
Have you spoken to the president about this? Have you asked him whether he was there with his son on July 30th?
This is not a conversation that I've had with the president.
And it's not just the White House press corps. The legacy media has been unable to ignore this scandal. All three broadcast networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, covered the story.
The lead IRS agent investigating Hunter Biden telling Congress they uncovered evidence the president's son pressured a potential Chinese business partner to move ahead with the deal by invoking his father.
If true, this would seem to contradict comments from President Biden that he was not involved in his son's business deals.
Karine Jean-Pierre told me, I have not spoken to the president about that. I asked her, do you plan to? Can you get us that answer? And she said, Chuck, no, I don't plan to speak to him about this, and I don't plan to address this from the podium. Wow. And that's which in many ways creates more questions about this issue.
And yet, President Biden still denying it all. Kayleigh, this would be absolutely preposterous, absolutely laughable if it wasn't so infuriating and heartbreaking that this is the scene right now with our commander-in-chief.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And he made that comment, and he said I was joking, but he made that comment with Modi that I sold a lot of state secrets. Can you imagine if former President Trump would have said that? There'd be like a special counsel appointed immediately. So it's interesting. One thing that I would love to see resolved, and it looks like Congress is working on it, is the discrepancy in testimony. Merrick Garland has said repeatedly under oath, I did not interfere with this. David Weiss has full authority. David Weiss, in June, the Delaware attorney, writes a letter, and in that letter, he tells Jim Jordan, I want to make clear that, as the AG has stated, I have been granted ultimate authority. So David Weiss on the record saying what Merrick Garland's saying is truthful, but now David Weiss won't answer questions after these whistleblowers came out. Why won't he answer questions? You have six people who were in this meeting. It was October 7th, 2022, where David Weiss apparently said, hey, I don't have ultimate authority. I asked to be special counsel. I was not granted that status. There are six people in the room, and now we have two whistleblowers. That seems pretty credible to me. Something is not adding up. And I'm glad to see Congress saying we need those six people to come to Congress and tell us the truth.
That's right, under oath and with penalty of perjury charges. Dagan, somewhere along the line, too, I fear that everyone involved has lost sight of the fact that it is our tax dollars that pay them, that they are either elected or appointed by someone that a little less than half the country elected. So when is there going to be accountability, and when is there going to be a commitment to service, which means showing us the proof of the results, the investigation, the answer to the discrepancy of testimony, and the reason why Hunter has not been charged more after years of investigation, after blatant, clear, mountainy evidence that he is engaged in not only conflict of interest with the then vice president and now president, but so much more.
And this starts with Joe Biden. Even as a senator for decades, working for the people of Delaware, he clearly forgot when that he was working for the taxpayers. And as vice president, he doesn't run his own little business. He can let his son stick his hand in the till all he wants if it's his own business, and you could get into legal trouble for that. But he is essentially allowing his son for years to stand atop the American people and work his long con and work his grift. And based on what Joe Biden has said, look the other way at the very least. But to Kaylee's point, so House Judiciary wants to talk to these 6 individuals who were said to be in the room with
Weiss.
with David
Yes.
Weiss from Delaware. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has said that Republicans will launch an impeachment inquiry into Garland if Gary Shapley's account is corroborated. And yesterday, Sean Duffy and I talked to Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, and he said the following: I know Kevin very well, and if he says something like that openly, he knows there's something there.
Interesting.
It will be interesting down the road. Kevin has something that the American people want to know. And at some point, we're going to have to get around Garland and get down to the nuts and bolts of what has been going on. But sadly, I don't think this goes anywhere until the Democrats decide that Joe Biden shouldn't be the nominee, and then it becomes the major scandal that it should be.
And that's just even more disgusting. And when is that at some point? Why isn't it right now? Why isn't it yesterday? Why isn't immediately after 5 years ago, Joey, that our tax dollars actually brought back some return on our squandered investment?
Yeah, politics trumps all. President Biden was a safe bet for them to get into the White House in 2020. And at which point does what's happening with Donald Trump become a greater liability? In other words, can Democrats hang their hat on a troubled president and still beat Donald Trump? I mean, that's really the bet they're waging, right? I mean, we have 6 people that possibly can corroborate what this one whistleblower is saying. And it's not just anything. It's not like, hey, Hunter Biden forgot to pay his taxes. I mean, the testimony that was in the New York Post, he says that he basically entered into this scheme to hide his taxes with a felon at Burisma, and specifically left out 2014 and 2015 because that's where the bad stuff was. And so the idea that he just forgot to pay his taxes, I mean, you know, some people forget to pay their taxes. He purposely left things out of his taxes because if you go looking in there, you might see a $5 million payment from somewhere it shouldn't come from. And so what they're alleging as whistleblowers is really serious stuff. And all we need text, emails, and testimony. Without those 3 things, without something to corroborate it, then it's a he said, she said. But as we've seen with multiple impeachment investigations, you don't even always have to have corroborating testimony to get at least half of Congress to want to impeach someone. So if I were Merrick Garland, I'd be worried.
Yeah, I think we have more of those 3, more percentages of those 3 right now than we have with half the things that have resulted in way more. And to that point, Joe, I have to say, I've seen so many successful prosecutions and plea deals and incarcerations of people that have dealt with 1 year of tax evasion, not even a count of fraud. And the thing is, there's a statutory minimum. So the reason that it's a misdemeanor, which I've never seen before, is because that enabled him to avoid jail time, unlike everyone else, all other normal Americans that actually are subjected to real law.
Yeah, and with this gun crime, I mean, the idea that this is not a big deal because the majority of cases aren't prosecuted to jail time, well, the majority of cases don't involve the son of a man who's going out and making millions of Americans felons overnight with the latest gun policy.
Right.
So the idea that you shouldn't be more stringently judged because you're the president's son, that doesn't always sit right with me. Only one family in the entire country gets to put their name on the seal and become president of the United States. If they can't set the example, who can? So if you can't go out and do the minimal thing, which is don't lie on a form to purchase a gun, if you can't go out and follow the simplest part of gun law, how could you ever ask someone else to vote for more gun laws, to believe in gun laws? And on top of that, I'm sorry, there's no excuse. Oh, he was an addict because his brother died. I've seen a lot of people die. I got 10 people in this book who went through tragedy. None of them became an addict and betrayed their dead brother by starting a relationship with his wife. That is terrible. Terrible excuse.
That's right. Well, Lion Joe and recidivist Hunter.
Well, that's right. And just at the very basic level, you had then Vice President Biden, who was in charge of bringing down corruption in Ukraine. And at the exact same time, it was his son who has zero expertise taking that board seat, and he's getting paid $5 million. He's not paying his taxes like the rest of us. And rather than having a meaningful conversation, the first part of his office to bring down corruption, the vice president should have said to his son, this isn't a good idea. And he can't claim that he didn't know about it, because even in Hunter Biden's memoir, he said that his father said to him, I hope you know what you're doing about this, son. So it was a failure of office of his responsibilities, but it was also a moral failure as an American of then Vice President Biden of not removing his son from that and having that conversation.
Of course. Well, now he gets to enjoy the Corvette and Camp David and everything else. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.